Someone is thinking about you right now. Not in a simple passing way. Not like someone thinking about what meal they should eat, or wondering if they forgot to lock the door. They are thinking about you in a way that keeps returning, like waves that always find the shore, again and again, even in moments when no one knows, even in moments when they try to distract themselves. But there is something confusing about it. They are not here, they are not calling you, they are not sending a message, they are keeping their distance. And what you may not realize is that there is one hidden reason behind this silence. Stay with me, because understanding this may completely change the way you see love, distance, and the person who cannot seem to walk away from their feelings. There is a certain type of silence that hurts more than words ever could. It is not the silence of someone who does not care. It is not the silence of someone who has forgotten you or moved on without feeling anything. It is the silence of someone who feels too much and does not know how to handle everything happening inside them. You may have experienced this before, sitting alone in a quiet room, feeling their absence like something heavy sitting on your chest, feeling connected to someone even when there is no conversation. You look at your phone, not because you are sure they will message, but because something deep inside you feels a strange connection, a feeling that maybe they are thinking about you too. And the truth is, they might be. They may be remembering you. They may be missing you, but they are still choosing to stay away. And the reason is not always about a lack of love. Sometimes the reason comes from a place inside them that has been hurt for a very long time. Sometimes the person who cares about you the most is also the person fighting the biggest internal battle. Their distance is not always a sign that their feelings disappeared. Sometimes love brings hidden emotions to the surface. Sometimes being close to someone reveals fears they have spent years trying to avoid. It makes them face parts of themselves they would rather ignore. Old pain, old disappointments, old memories of moments when they felt unwanted, rejected, or abandoned. These feelings existed before you entered their life. They are not caused by you, but your presence may have awakened them, because when someone truly matters, they become more than just a person in your life. They become a reflection. They show you parts of yourself that you never wanted to see. Think about what happens when you love someone deeply. You do not only see their smile, their kindness, or the beautiful moments you share. You also begin to see yourself more clearly. You notice your insecurities. You notice your fears. You notice the parts of your heart that still need healing. Deep love has a way of bringing everything hidden into the light. It becomes a journey inward. It forces a person to ask difficult questions. Why am I afraid to be loved? Why do I want closeness but run when someone gets too close? Why do I miss someone but still create distance? These questions can feel overwhelming, and sometimes, instead of moving closer, a person steps back because facing their own emotions feels harder than missing you from a distance. And this is the part many people misunderstand. They assume that someone who walks away must not care. They believe silence means the feelings are gone. But sometimes silence is where the strongest emotional battles happen. Sometimes a person is fighting between what their heart wants and what their fear allows. They want to reach out. They want to hear your voice. They want to feel that connection again. But another part of them is afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of needing someone, afraid that if they open their heart completely, they will experience the same pain they once felt before. Stay with me, because the next part reveals why some people run from the very love they secretly desire. Some people are not ready to face everything that real love brings to the surface. Some people need more time in their own darkness before they can truly handle the brightness of a genuine connection. But understand this clearly. This is not an excuse for someone to hurt you. It is not a reason for you to ignore your own pain or pretend that their absence does not affect you. It does hurt. It hurts deeply because the things that matter most often touch the most sensitive parts of our hearts. The pain does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means something was meaningful. Sometimes it means you experienced something that reached beyond the surface. But real love, the kind that does not appear every single day, always asks something from us. It requires honesty. It requires courage. It requires growth. The question is not whether love will challenge you. It will. The real question is whether you are willing to understand what that challenge is teaching you, and whether the other person is willing to begin their own journey toward healing and emotional understanding. Let me tell you something about the person who cares about you but chooses to stay away. They may wake up in the morning, and before the responsibilities of the day begin, before the noise of life takes over, there is a moment where you appear in their mind, a memory, a feeling, a quiet warmth, but almost instantly something darker follows, a fear, a hesitation, because for them happiness and fear have become connected. They do not experience love as only comfort. They experience it as both comfort and danger at the same time, through past experiences, through painful endings, through people who entered their world and left behind wounds they never fully understood. They learned a painful lesson. They learned that wanting something deeply also creates the possibility of losing it deeply. And the thought of losing you, even if it exists only in their imagination, feels unbearable. So they create distance. They build walls. They step away. Not because you are unimportant, but sometimes because you mean more than they know how to handle. There is a powerful emotional pattern where some people become afraid of being completely close to another person. It is the fear of losing themselves inside a relationship, the fear that closeness will take away their control, their independence, or their sense of safety. And this fear often appears strongest in people who are not incapable of love, but people who once loved with everything they had, and experienced pain they never truly processed. Their heart wants connection, but their protective instincts tell them to run. Their mind says stay safe. Their heart says come closer. And this creates an invisible battle inside them. They move toward you, then suddenly create space. They miss you, then become distant. They want to talk, then convince themselves silence is better. Not always because they are trying to confuse you. Not always because they are pretending. Sometimes because two different parts of them are fighting at the same time. The part that longs to love you and the part that is still protecting itself from old wounds. Maybe you have spent countless nights asking yourself what you did wrong. Maybe you replay conversations in your head. Maybe you search through every memory, every word, every small moment, trying to find the exact place where everything changed. You look at their silence and somehow turn it into a judgment against yourself. You start wondering if you were too much, if you were not enough, if there was something missing in you that made them leave. But here is the truth you need to hear. Their distance is not always a reflection of your value. Their inability to stay close does not automatically mean you were impossible to love. Sometimes people walk away from things they deeply desire, because they are fighting battles within themselves that you cannot see. And this is the most painful part. Their struggle can make you question your own worth when their struggle was never created by you. When people are hurting, they often search for answers. The mind wants a reason. It wants a clear explanation for why someone pulled away. And sadly, the easiest explanation is usually the most painful one. We tell ourselves, maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was not lovable enough. Maybe I did something to deserve this. But I want you to understand this completely. You are not defined by someone else's fear. You are not measured by someone else's inability to show up. You are not less valuable because someone could not handle the depth of what they felt. You deserve a love that exists in the open. A love that does not only remember you privately, but chooses you publicly. A love that does not keep you hidden inside someone's heart while leaving you alone in reality. Stay with me, because the hidden reason behind their distance goes even deeper than fear. It reveals something about the way they have learned to protect themselves from the very thing they secretly desire most. They have not yet learned how to separate love from the fear of losing it. Deep inside their emotional world, love and loss are connected. Their understanding of connection was shaped by earlier experiences, by moments when people they depended on were unavailable, inconsistent, or suddenly disappeared. It may have come from relationships that started with incredible intensity, but ended with disappointment and pain. It may come from a wound they have carried quietly for years, a wound they have never had the courage to explain to anyone. For them, love and loss do not feel like two different chapters. They feel like the same story happening at the same time. The moment they begin to love, they also begin to fear the ending. Before anything has truly fallen apart, they are already imagining the heartbreak. Before you have even completely entered their world, they are already feeling the emptiness of you leaving. And that is why they react the way wounded hearts often react. When something appears that could either save them or hurt them deeply, they become still, they become distant, they retreat into silence, they create space, not because they do not care, but because their fear is louder than their desire to come closer. Stay with me, because the reason behind this distance reveals something most people never understand about hidden emotions. This is not the person they truly want to become. Please understand that. If you could see the thoughts they keep hidden, if you could read the messages they type but never send, if you could hear the conversations they have with themselves when everyone else is asleep, you might see their distance differently. You might not feel rejected. You might feel something even more painful. You might feel compassion for someone who carries love inside them, but feels unable to express it. There is a unique kind of loneliness that comes from being disconnected from your own emotions, from wanting closeness but feeling trapped behind your own walls, from having a heart that wants to reach out while fear keeps pulling you backward. They are not always running away from you. Sometimes they are running away from the version of themselves they believe they must become in order to receive your love. Because your love requires honesty, it requires openness, it requires trust. It requires them to stop hiding behind the protection they built for years. And for someone who has spent a lifetime surviving through emotional distance, becoming vulnerable can feel like the hardest journey imaginable. Deep within every person, there are hidden parts of themselves they avoid facing. Parts connected to old fears, painful memories, unmet needs, and emotions they learned to bury. These hidden parts do not disappear simply because someone ignores them. They continue influencing decisions from beneath the surface. They quietly shape how a person responds to love, trust, and closeness. The person who cares about you but stays away may be controlled by this hidden fear, by the belief that if someone truly sees all of them, they will eventually walk away. They may believe that being fully known means being rejected, that showing every weakness means giving someone the power to hurt them. So they choose the safest version of love they know. A love they can feel privately but never fully risk. A love they can protect because it never enters the uncertain world of reality. Because if they never completely open their heart, they believe they can never experience complete heartbreak. But there is something this fear does not understand. Something the wounded part of them has not yet discovered. Avoiding pain does not always protect you from pain. Sometimes it only creates a different kind of suffering. You cannot stop loss by refusing to love. You cannot guarantee safety by keeping everyone at a distance. The moment you hold back your feelings to avoid a possible future heartbreak, you are already living inside the loneliness you feared. Every time you choose silence instead of honesty, you choose a small form of separation. Every time you choose distance instead of connection, you create the very emptiness you were trying to escape. Protection can become a prison when it prevents you from experiencing the very thing your heart needs. And this is the hidden conflict happening inside someone who loves you but stays away. They are not only fighting their feelings for you, they are fighting the fear that tells them love is dangerous. They are fighting the memories that convince them closeness always comes with a price. And until they face that inner battle, they may continue standing at the edge of something beautiful, wanting to step forward while still being afraid to take the first step. What would it truly take for this person to finally break through their walls? What would need to happen for them to stop running from the very thing they desire most? The answer is not something that comes from you. It does not come from your patience, your effort, or your ability to love them perfectly. It has to begin within them. It requires a level of awareness where they can finally sit with their own fear without immediately turning that fear into distance. It requires them to face the uncomfortable emotions they have spent years avoiding, to feel the desire to move closer to you, and instead of escaping, to pause and understand what is happening inside them, to ask a different question. Not only what if this ends, but also, what if this is the beginning of something I have always wanted? Because the life they are protecting by staying away may not actually be a life of peace. It may only be a practice version of living, a carefully controlled version of existence where they avoid pain, but also avoid the very connection that gives life meaning. They have created a safe place, but safety without love can become another form of loneliness. Stay with me, because this is where many people misunderstand what love truly requires. Maybe you have asked yourself what you should do. Should you reach out one more time? Should you stay quiet and allow them space? Should you keep believing in their potential? Or should you choose yourself and continue moving forward? These questions are difficult because love rarely gives simple answers. But there is something important you need to understand. You cannot force someone to become emotionally ready. You cannot love someone so perfectly that they suddenly heal every wound they have carried for years. You cannot give endless understanding and expect it to replace the work they must do inside themselves. Love is not something you use to repair another person's pain. Love is an offering. It is a doorway. It is an invitation. And every person has the freedom to walk through that doorway or remain outside. What you can do is stay connected to your own truth. You can understand what your heart needs. You can recognize what you are willing to give, and also understand where your limits begin. Because your love matters too, your emotional needs matter too. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they face one of the hardest choices they will ever make. Not simply choosing between staying or leaving, not just choosing between comfort and uncertainty, but choosing between the love that exists right now and the love that might exist someday. The love that feels real but remains distant. The love that is felt but never fully expressed. The love that lives in someone's heart but never reaches their actions. And then there is another kind of love. A love that arrives when someone has done their inner work. A love that is present. A love that chooses you without hesitation. A love that is not perfect because it has no fears, but because it has learned not to let fear control every decision. You deserve a love that can meet you fully. A love that does not leave you constantly wondering where you stand. But it is also possible that someone who is afraid today can grow tomorrow. People can change. People can heal. People can reach a point where carrying the same pain becomes harder than facing it. Sometimes a person finally turns around and looks directly at the thing they have been escaping for years. And when they do, they discover something surprising. The thing they feared was not actually their enemy. It was their own longing. It was their own desire to be understood, accepted, and loved. It was the deepest need of their heart wearing the disguise of fear. The moment they stop running, the moment they become brave enough to look honestly at themselves, everything begins to shift. But remember this carefully. You cannot spend your entire life waiting for someone else's transformation. That is not love anymore. That becomes self-abandonment. Love should not require you to disappear while hoping someone else eventually finds themselves. A person can wait so long for a door to open that they forget they are allowed to walk toward another door. They can become so focused on someone else's healing that they stop noticing their own heart is becoming exhausted. Because when waiting becomes your identity, it changes the way you understand love. You begin to believe love means standing outside someone else's closed door forever. You begin to believe patience means accepting endless uncertainty. You begin to believe your role is to quietly hold hope while someone else decides whether they are ready. But your heart was never created to live only in waiting. Your heart was created to experience connection, honesty, and mutual effort. So now I want to speak to the part of you that feels tired, the part that has been understanding for a long time, the part that has been patient with the silence, the part that has created explanations for every moment of distance. You have carried your own emotions while also carrying the weight of their fears. You have protected their struggles, while sometimes forgetting to protect your own peace. You have offered compassion again and again, even when you were the one quietly hurting. And maybe the most important question is not only whether they will find the courage to come closer. Maybe the deeper question is whether you will continue choosing yourself while you wait to see what they decide. To the part of you that feels exhausted, I want to say something that may sound difficult to accept at first, something that may even feel like you are giving up on the love you have been protecting. But in reality, it may be one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. You are allowed to release the weight you have been carrying. You are allowed to stop holding both sides of a connection where only you are doing the pulling. You are allowed to admit what you need without shrinking your needs just to make someone else comfortable with giving less. Wanting a love that is present, honest, clear, expressed, and fully chosen is not a weakness. It is not a sign that you are asking for too much. It does not mean you are too sensitive or too difficult to love. It means you are human. Every person has a natural desire to be seen completely, to be valued openly, and to feel someone standing beside them with certainty, instead of confusion. You are allowed to want that kind of love. You are allowed to say it without guilt. And sometimes, the moment you become honest about what your heart truly needs, is the moment a confusing situation finally begins to reveal the truth. Because clarity, even when painful, is often the first step toward freedom and healing. The moment you stop accepting uncertainty as a replacement for real love, something begins to shift. The situation can no longer remain frozen forever. It has to move, it has to reveal itself. Either the person who has been loving you quietly from a distance will notice the change. They will feel that you are no longer standing endlessly at the same door, waiting for them to decide. They will recognize that the opportunity they kept postponing is no longer guaranteed, and maybe in that moment, they will finally choose courage over fear. Maybe they will take the step they have been avoiding. But if they do not, then that silence becomes an answer too, a painful answer, but still an answer. And you will finally be able to grieve without the constant confusion of wondering. You will be able to feel the loss completely, instead of living halfway between hope and heartbreak. And slowly, with time, you will begin to return to yourself. Remember this important truth. Grief is not proof that love failed. Grief is proof that something mattered. Many people misunderstand grief. They think it means something went wrong. They think it means the love was a mistake, or that caring deeply was foolish. But grief is simply love that no longer has a place to go. It is the feeling that remains when your heart still carries something that reality cannot currently hold. To grieve fully is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of respect for what you experienced. It is allowing yourself to admit that something meaningful existed, that you were not imagining the connection, that the moments you shared were not meaningless, that the feelings you carried were real, even if the story did not unfold the way you hoped. Some connections are complicated. Some are filled with both comfort and pain, closeness and distance, hope and disappointment. But complexity does not erase reality. Something can be incomplete and still be important. Something can end and still have changed you forever. Now I want you to understand something about where this journey can lead from here. Because this is not only a story about someone who loves you, but stays away. This is a story about what happens when love meets human limitations. It is about what pain can teach you when you stop running from it and start listening to it. The very wound at the center of this situation, the wound within you, the wound within them, and the emotional space between two people who care but cannot fully connect, may also become the place where transformation begins. Sometimes the hardest moments become the doorway to a completely different version of yourself. You are changing through this experience, even if right now it only feels like sadness. Growth rarely announces itself as growth while it is happening. Often it feels like confusion. It feels like losing something. It feels like questioning everything you believed about love. But slowly, something inside you becomes stronger. You are learning the difference between a love that requires you to disappear and a love that allows you to fully exist. You are discovering the difference between chasing someone and choosing yourself. You are understanding that real love is not only about deep feelings, it is also about presence, effort, honesty, and the courage to show up. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: you can experience someone's fear without making it your responsibility. You can understand someone's wounds without carrying them for them. You can love someone deeply while still protecting your own heart. You can survive the silence of another person's uncertainty without losing your own voice. Stay with me, because the next part reveals the transformation that begins when you finally stop asking only whether they will return, and start asking what kind of love you are truly ready to receive. You are learning that you can care deeply for another person's pain, without losing yourself in the process. You can hold compassion for someone else's wounds while still protecting your own peace. These are not ordinary lessons. These are the qualities that shape people who have developed true emotional strength and deep understanding. The hidden parts of ourselves are not only places where fear, pain, and forgotten memories exist. They can also become the places where growth begins. They can become the source of creativity, connection, wisdom, and transformation. The things we bury inside are not always there to destroy us. Sometimes they are unfinished chapters waiting to be understood. And when we finally face them, they can become the foundation of a stronger and more complete version of ourselves.